Teenagers in the 1980s didn't grow up slowly. They were launched into a world of mixtapes, neon, Walkmans, and Cold War tension. Culture was loud, technology was chunky, and self-expression came with a price. You couldn't scroll, swipe, or stream. You lived everything in real time, or you missed it. This wasn't retro, it was rebellion, identity, and invention. From mall arcades to midnight radio recordings, the 80s teen experience was unlike anything before or after. Some of it was ridiculous. Most of it was unforgettable. Let's go back to the moments only that generation truly lived. You didn't just style your hair in the 80s. You declared war on gravity. Volume was everything, and the bigger, the better. Hair wasn't just part of your look, it was the look. With the help of Aquanet hairspray, crimping irons, and the occasional home perm, you sculpted your head into a billboard of rebellion. For girls, it meant teased bangs, side ponytails, and glittery scrunchies. For guys, it was mullets. Business in the front, party in the back was not a joke, it was a lifestyle. And if you were bold enough, you might even throw in a lightning bolt shave or frosted tips. There were no subtle choices, only bold ones. It wasn't practical, it wasn't easy, but it was unforgettable. You left the house every morning hoping for compliments, and usually left trails of hairspray behind. The 80s hair scene wasn't about taste, it was about confidence. Which hairstyle made you feel most unstoppable? There was no Bluetooth, no streaming, but the boombox made you feel like you ruled the street. It was heavy, it ate batteries like candy, but once it was on your shoulder, you had instant status. You weren't just listening to music, you were broadcasting it. The sound was loud, raw, and absolutely yours. Whether it was hip-hop, rock, or your latest radio mixtape, the boombox turned sidewalks into parties. DJs shouted through your speakers, and taping your favourite song required perfect timing and intense focus. Missed the first 2 seconds? Too bad. It was more than a gadget, it was freedom, expression, and a portable rebellion. Even carrying it was a statement. I've got something to say, and you're going to hear it. And if you remember how it felt when you hit play, then you know you lived the real thing. Before they were retro, Converse All-Stars were just ours. We wore them scuffed, mismatched, and in every colour under the sun. Some went high top, others kept it low cut, but no one argued. They were the cool kids' shoes, period. The rubber toe got scraped within a week. The canvas faded fast, and we loved them more for it. You didn't buy new ones, you broke them in. Some people drew on them with permanent markers, others swapped laces to make a statement. Every pair told its own story. Wearing Converse wasn't about style trends. It was about fitting in and standing out all at once. They were just sneakers, but to us, they meant everything. Denim in the 80s wasn't just fashion, it was obsession. Jackets, jeans, skirts, stone-washed, acid-washed, ripped or bedazzled. It was never too much. Thanks to pop culture icons like Michael J. Fox and Madonna, denim became our second skin. We ironed patches onto our jackets, ripped holes into our knees, and argued with our parents over the distressed look. Double denim wasn't a fashion crime, it was a goal. If you had matching jeans and jacket, especially in a pale wash, you were elite. Add a band pin or two, and you were unstoppable. It didn't matter if it came from a department store or a second-hand shop. As long as it fit tight and looked tough, it worked. Denim was armor, attitude, and expression, all wrapped up in one outfit. They weren't store-bought. They were made with care, patience, and way too much colored thread. Friendship bracelets weren't just accessories, they were promises. You gave one to your best friend, knowing full well that next week it might go to someone else. And that was part of the magic. Some kids followed elaborate patterns, while others just knotted threads until something vaguely wearable came out. You wore them until they frayed, broke, or got confiscated by a teacher. It wasn't about perfection, it was about the gesture. The brighter the colours, the tighter the knot, the stronger the bond. It was a quiet rebellion against store-bought popularity. Friendship bracelets said, "I made this for you." And that meant something. Subtlety was not welcome in the 80s. If your outfit didn't glow in the dark, you weren't doing it right. Neon was everywhere. T-shirts, leg warmers, laces, and even scrunchies. Fluorescent green and hot pink weren't options. They were staples. You didn't match on purpose. You clashed proudly. Bermuda shorts met tie-dye socks. LA Gear sneakers lit up beneath ultraviolet lights. And if your shoelaces weren't at least 2 different colours, you were behind the trend. Walking into school felt like stepping into a highlighter explosion, and no one cared. We didn't just wear neon, we owned it. It was confidence in cotton form, and we wore it loud. If you could beat Contra without cheat codes, you were a legend. We weren't born into gaming, we invented it. Nintendo changed everything, blowing into cartridges, racing to level 4 in Super Mario Bros, and begging your parents for just 5 more minutes became the norm. The graphics were blocky, the controllers stiff, but the joy was pure. Donkey Kong, Zelda, Tetris, these weren't just games, they were rituals. You didn't just play them, you memorized them, and when you finally beat the boss level, you earned bragging rights for weeks. Today's teens have better tech, but we had the soul. We were the generation that played for the thrill, not the likes. You didn't need a screen to feel challenged. All it took was 6 colours, 54 squares, and 1 impossible puzzle. The Rubik's Cube was the king of 80s brain busters. Everyone had one. Few actually solved it. Some kids could do it in under a minute, turning, twisting, no sweat. Others peeled off the stickers. Most of us stared at it, turned it twice and gave up, but we kept trying. At school, on the bus, under the covers with a flashlight, it became our fidget spinner before fidget spinners existed. It wasn't about finishing it, it was about being seen trying. The Rubik's Cube told the world, I'm curious, I'm stubborn, and I've got time to burn. They weren't just books, they were a gateway to teenage drama that felt bigger than life. Sweet Valley High introduced us to Jessica and Elizabeth Wakefield, identical twins with wildly different lives. Set in sunny California, the stories were pure escapism, but somehow still felt close to home. With over 600 books, the series defined the teenage girl experience of the 80s. First crushes, betrayal, popularity contests, it was all there. We didn't just read them, we devoured them. The pastel covers lined our shelves, our bags, and sometimes hidden corners of the classroom desk. The books gave us a shared language, like, oh my God, grody to the max and gag me with a spoon became part of everyday speech. Sweet Valley wasn't real, but it shaped how we saw ourselves. You didn't just listen to music in the 80s, you lived it. Every mood had a soundtrack. Every heartbreak had a ballad. Every rebellion had a guitar solo. From the moment the radio clicked on, music was our emotional compass. We danced to Madonna, head-banged to Guns N' Roses, and cried to Whitney Houston. The mixtape became our love letter, our diary, our calling card. And if your tape got eaten by the stereo, that was a tragedy. You rewound songs with a pencil and memorized every lyric like it was gospel. The 80s didn't have a single sound. It had a symphony of youth. And when the right song played, the world finally made sense. There was no pause button. No rewind. Saturday mornings were sacred because if you missed a cartoon, you missed it forever. We rolled out of bed with our cereal bowls, eyes locked on the television, waiting for He-Man, Thundercats, or the real Ghostbusters to begin. It wasn't just entertainment, it was ritual. Pajamas, beanbags, no interruptions. Those few hours were pure joy, unfiltered and uninterrupted by school, homework, or chores. The colours were brighter, the stories louder, and the characters felt like part of the family. Today's kids can stream anytime, but we earned our cartoons. And that's why we remember every single theme song. Lunchtime wasn't just for sandwiches, it was for swaps. Sticker albums were the quiet obsession of every playground. Football stickers, glitter stickers, scratch and sniff, every packet held the potential to make or break your day. You memorized which numbers you needed, who had extras, and who was a ruthless trader. Pages were wrinkled, corners bent, but the goal was always the same: complete the set. Trading was tense, deals were made in whispers, and duplicates were guarded like treasure. It wasn't digital, it was physical, personal and thrilling. You didn't just collect, you competed. Making a mixtape wasn't as easy as dragging files, it was an act of precision. You hovered over the record and pause buttons, ready to strike the moment the DJ stopped talking. If you caught part of an ad or a random shout-out, the whole recording felt ruined. We waited for hours just to get that one song, rewinding and re-recording until we nailed it. Blank cassettes weren't just tapes, they were sound diaries. We poured our hearts into those compilations, each side curated with emotion, crushes, heartbreaks, or rebellion. There were no second chances, no editing, just music, timing and hope. And when it worked, that click of the stop button felt like magic. School ended, but the real lessons started after 3 p.m. Shows like Degrassi Junior High, The Wonder Years, and Growing Pains didn't talk down to us. They spoke for us. They tackled issues no teacher dared to mention: bullying, divorce, peer pressure, even death. We rushed home to catch episodes live. No replays, no spoilers. These shows weren't polished, they were honest. Characters weren't superheroes, they were us. Awkward, emotional, figuring it out. And every episode felt like it knew what you were going through before you did. They weren't just background noise, they helped us survive adolescence. And for many of us, those characters still live in the back of our minds. Before group chats and social feeds, there was one place to find everyone: the mall. It was freedom without a destination. Just showing up was enough. You met friends at the food court, hung out by the fountain, or killed time between arcade rounds and music stores. It didn't matter if you bought anything. Trying on clothes you couldn't afford, collecting free samples, or browsing tapes and posters was the entire plan. You might spend hours circling the same 3 shops, and it never got boring. Even payphones became tools of strategy. Call my mum when it's time. The mall was a stage, and if you had the right crew, the right song on your Walkman, and enough coins for fries, you were exactly where you needed to be. Did your weekend plans always start here? Being a teenager in the 1980s meant living in full colour, with no pause button, no undo, and no filters. We made mixtapes, not playlists. We met in malls, not in messages. Every memory had a texture: plastic, denim, paper, cassette tape. From neon socks to cassette clicks, those years carved a space in time that feels impossible to repeat. Because we didn't just grow up in the 80s, we survived them, we owned them. And if even one of these things made you smile, pause, or sigh, you were there too. If this video took you back, even for a moment, subscribe now for more journeys through decades that still live in us all.